Okay, let's go to the Chicago Bulls.
Let's do it.
The Chicago Bulls offseason. I don't know is the best way to start this question. I personally would blow this up. I think most people
Deja vu
would blow this up. They have DeMar DeRozan as an unrestricted free agent. They have Pat Williams as a restricted free agent. Their core right now is like Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, whatever is left of Zach LaVine after this season. He has 3 years, $138 million left. Nikola Vucevic at 2 years, $41.5 million. They have Caruso at 1 year, $10 million. Then he's an unrestricted free agent. This is the time where if you're going to get anything for these guys, you have to blow it up. And oh, by the way, as we're talking about this, the Bulls do not have a lot of space below the tax for a team like, look, A, Jerry Reinsdorf is not paying the tax. B, like they have $35 million below the tax or so to re-sign DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Williams and potentially Andre Drummond, right? They have to do stuff. Like on some level, this roster has to look different.
It doesn't have to do anything, Sam. It doesn't have to do anything because we all said they have to do it at the deadline and they didn't do nothing.
So the only reason I think it has to look different is I think that they were hoping that they'd be able to like finish 9th and maybe get like a home play-in game to make some money. I think that the reason that this probably changes a little bit with some trades is because Jerry Reinsdorf is not going to pay the tax, especially for this team. There's just no way.
He shouldn't pay the tax for this team.
No owner on planet Earth should pay the tax for this team.
I don't know. I have no idea. I've given up on trying to figure out what's going to go on because like it made so much sense to make some of these moves. I will say, like, to give Kobe White has been awesome. Ayo Dosunmu, I think had a really good into the season. Overall, his year, the numbers don't jump up, but he went 50, 40, 81 for the season, playing almost 30 minutes a game, had a really good into the season. I would start there. They have projected number 11 in the draft right now. We all know it's a weak draft, all of that stuff, but you add another player. I would probably bring back Patrick Williams and move most of these other guys. I just don't think they're going to do it. Like I honestly am expected DeMar DeRozan extension to be the first free agency offseason news.
So let's say that they do that, right? Let's say they have to sign DeMar to a 2-year, $60 million deal. Something like that, right? 2-year, $50 million. I don't know what the number would be. You have Kobe White, you have DeMar, you have Dosunmu. I think that this is the summer where they have to find a taker for Zach LaVine on some level.
Agreed.
Then you have Vooch for 2 years, $41 million. Guys, the Nikola Vucevic experience this year was
draft a big.
You could draft a big. Like I'm for drafting a big, especially with Andre Drummond being a free agent. Like that makes sense. But they got to find answers in the front court in some way. You can't run back what Vooch was defensively this year. I also didn't love him on defense last year, but like this year, I thought he was. Look, I don't want to say he's the worst defensive center in the league. I'd need to think about that, but like there's no way he wasn't in the bottom 3 starting centers defensively this year. You can't run it back with him as like your primary interior anchor and think that this is all going to be sweet, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you said the two guys, like, I don't know what I think about DeMar. I mean, I love DeMar as a player. Part of me wants him to go play on a good team that has a chance to really win. But if he wants to play there, I'm a little more interested in watching Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, DeMar still, Patrick Williams, insert pick at number 11 center, ideally a center. At one point I thought maybe that could be Klingon. He's flown up draft boards too much at this point. I don't think he's going to be there. There's some other guys that in that range. I would be more interested in that than them rolling out Zach LaVine and Vooch with those guys, I guess.
Yeah. I would have loved it if they could have ended up with Klingon. I think I agree with you that like projected at 11th overall, they're very unlikely to end up with him. They would have to move up the draft board to be able to do that. Do you bring back DeMar DeRozan? Yes or no?
I mean, I wouldn't, but I also think they should just go full. The other problem is now you just lose him for nothing, like we've talked about, with Klay Thompson. And so now it seems stupid if you do that. So I feel like if I'm taking over the organization today, I almost feel like I'm backed into a corner where I have to, because he is still a good player. I mean, DeRozan averaged 24 a game on 48, got to the line almost 8 times, 85% from there, over 5 assists. Like DeMar DeRozan is a good player. And so I don't hate having a good player around my young guys. I think listen, I've watched this happen for 4 years now, where a team has put young guys out on the floor and not other good veterans around them. And it's been an absolute disaster. So I could understand using cap space on DeMar DeRozan to keep him around. So all of this doesn't fall on Kobe White and whoever else, but then you got to do the other things. You got to start looking for the other ways to plan for the future.
I think we're at the point where like DeMar is maybe the most underrated player like in the NBA.
He's really good.
He's still really good. Like he was still worth, even according to like advanced metrics like EPM, he was worth 9 wins this year. Like that's like a top 50 or so mark in the league, right? DeMar is really good. Having him is really valuable. I think you probably have to bring him back. I think you probably have to bring Pat Williams back. And then you have to, the thing is, I think you have to move LaVine before you do any of this. Otherwise you run the risk of just like being back in this vicious cycle again. I would try to move LaVine and Vooch early in the offseason, get rid of them. Frankly, I would also move Caruso. This
because
is
of
when
the
you have to
assets it
cash in.
provides. Because the assets.
Yes.
He's not valuable at the deadline, Sam, because now he's on an expiring. You have to pay. I mean, let me still walk back. He's on an insane contract right now that makes him even more valuable at the deadline. That's now whoever's trading for him, you have to pay for him.
He would still get a first round pick at the deadline next year.
I agree.
I feel confident of that. But like, if you're the Bulls, if I'm them, I'm trying to like extend him, right? Sure. Or moving him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like you have to do one or the other.
Agreed.
To me, I'm moving him. I wonder if like that's a potential Warriors like idea is Caruso. Could you get Caruso for X, Y, and Z? That'd be an amazing fit for them. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. Vooch, I don't think you get any value for. Here's the real problem. As we talk through all of this, I'm going to bring up players. Tell me if you think they get plus value for them on the trade market.
Okay.
Kobe White, yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like unequivocally.
100%.
Ayatasumu, yes.
Yes.
Unequivocally. But like you want to keep those guys because they're younger and
agreed.
Like they can be a piece of the next like good Bulls team.
Kobe White is on a stupid contract all of a sudden.
But by the way, that deal only has 2 years left.
Only 2 years. Yep.
He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of that.
Yep.
So Zach LaVine.
No.
I do not think he will get positive value. I used to think so. I was wrong. I don't think that he will at this stage.
I don't either.
Nikola Vucevic.
Neutral. No.
I don't think they will get positive value for Vooch in a deal. I think they'd be like moving him to get off of the deal.
I don't think you have to attach assets to get off of him. But yeah, anyway, semantics.
Yeah. Alex Caruso, yes. You bring back positive value. DeMar DeRozan is an unrestricted free agent, so just by and large, like it would have to be a sign and trade somewhere. But like you probably would get positive value if you moved him in a sign and trade.
I agree.
Andre Drummond is an unrestricted free agent. I can't see that being a thing. Pat Williams, it would be a sign and trade for like big money. I don't think you'd get like a crazy.
You would get positive value, but not like something. It wouldn't be negative value.
Yeah. And then like Javon Carter, you'd get second rounders.
Yeah.
Lonzo Ball's money is still here. Yeah. Torrey Craig has like a player option. But like, there's just not a lot of like real valuable players
that's
here
fair.
where you bring back like we're getting real, genuine, positive value
to build
if
it
we
out.
move
No,
them.
that's fair.
If
That's
we rebuild.
yeah. No, you're right.
So if that's the case, I would prefer to blow it up and not re-sign DeMar and like try and sign and trade Pat Williams somewhere and like be the worst team in the NBA next year. If I was them, that would be what I would try and do. I have Cooper Flagg coming in potentially, Ace Bailey, whoever, right?
Who
Awesome.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought because I want to shift gears to DeMar's free agency at some point.
I was just going to say, I don't think there's a chance in hell there's a chance in hell the Bulls do this. Point blank.
Agreed 100%. Let's say they don't sign
I'd move
DeMar.
Caruso as well, as like that's obvious within this. But yeah, continue.
Let's say they don't sign DeMar. I just went to Spotrac. I went cap space, projected, practical. Detroit, he's not going to Detroit. Philly, Utah has 37.5, OKC 35, Spurs have 27, Orlando 25-2. Who stands out on that list as potential suitors for DeMar DeRozan if it's not a sign and trade? It's just straight up sign with cap space.
Philly, if they miss out on everything, maybe. Okay. Right?
Yeah. No, that was the name. That was the team that jumped out to me.
Like Utah, maybe? Because I don't think Utah wants to like totally tank. I'm not saying it's a great idea for Utah. I'm just saying, like, I don't think they want to totally tank.
No, I agree. I just am wondering, like what does DeMar's contract end up looking like? Like, what can the Bulls end up getting him back for?
Yeah, I mean, like maybe 25. Like it'd have to be Philly. Philly would have to move on. Like that's what it has to be, right? Like Philly would have to like lose out on Paul George and everybody else, and they'd have to like come to the table for DeMar and be like, hey, we'll give you 30, whatever our cap space is. We have 55 million. We'll give you 33 on a 1-year deal or something like that. And then DeMar's like, okay, I'll just hit free agency again next year. Versus the Bulls giving him like 25 or so.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to me because it was like how many teams. I think the most likely scenario is a sign and trade, I guess.
Yeah.
I know those can get tricky as well. So I don't know. I was just looking at cap space teams and kind of wondering how that could then play out. So
yeah, and Escapubly brings up DDR to a team like the Magic on a short-term deal. I mean, look, like I guess that's not impossible. It's not what I think the Magic need necessarily. Like I think the last thing they need is another mid-range guy. But like, I mean, it's not impossible. Their guards have been really bad in this series against Cleveland. They really might just decide we need somebody who can like get buckets on some level.
Yeah.
The other thing, Philly has Kyle Lowry at this point as well. I think that's a really good point to bring up. Lowry and DeMar are obviously still close. Yeah, look, I mean, again, I'm not advocating for the Magic to sign DeMar DeRozan. It's just Jeff Weltman was also in Toronto when DeMar DeRozan was there. I'm just saying, like, there are dots you can connect to make that connection if you really want to.
Sure.
Look, I'm blowing this up. I don't think they're blowing it up. That makes these offseason previews difficult to do on some level, which is why we're probably going to spend a little bit less time on them than we do some of the other teams. It's just all about them like having a look in the mirror and being like, hey, we're not where we want to be. I know that we get attendance. I know that people still come to the arena and still think that we matter because we're the Bulls and Michael Jordan and all that shit. And we have like one of the 4 biggest markets in the league. But I mean, until the Reinsdorfs decide, hey, we're willing to tank and, we're willing to rebuild this thing, it's hard to, really blame. And I know there have been reports on, oh yeah, like Arturas Karnisovas had the ability to blow that up this summer or in the spring. He could have moved everybody. I find that hard to believe. Yep. I do. Truthfully, I do. I find it hard to believe that any like intelligent GM or president of basketball ops would not blow this up if he had the ability to do so. That's where I'm at on all of this, Bryce. Disappointing to finish on the Bulls.